promised video my top 10 or maybe 11 lessons from Bali. So we are here. We are having some Balinese incense. We're having a Ganesha here. You guys, I needed her throughout my entire travels. And I have my Bali journal. So an unofficial tip, if you're traveling and you are traveling for like self-development or even not, buy a specific special journal just for that and write everything, all of the lessons, all of the things right away, because otherwise you will forget it. Literally, I was going through this journal and I did not remember half of the breakthroughs and the things and the lessons because they've become so quickly embodied and part of me that they didn't feel like something I just learned. All right, so I actually wrote down about 17 lessons, but I decided to kind of combine them, put them together, and some of them I might share in different, places, but let's dive into it, shall we? All right, so lesson number 1. You don't have to go to Bali to have a spiritual experience. And anytime that you are trying or clinging or you're being needy, it's not going to happen. All right. So I went to Bali, and because it was such a big dream for me and because I see it as a very spiritual place, which it is, I literally thought that the minute that I land, I'm going to have a huge spiritual awakening, that I'm going to feel so connected and so at home, kind of how I felt when I first visited Hawaii. None of it happened, all right? And I literally was searching and looking for my spiritual Bali experience for probably the first part of the trip. So I was there for 4 weeks. So the first 10 days at least, the smoke is like coming right into my face. But the first 10 days, I was literally in the search of where is my Bali experience? Like, I believe this is a freaking scam, everyone. This is a part of a big scheme with conspiracy theory that everyone goes to Bali and has the best and spiritual time. And I'm the first one to bust this story through because it's not true. Because this is not happening for me, right? So my first thing that I discovered was you don't have to go anywhere else to have a certain spiritual or connection experience or to have a breakthrough. Even though changing our environment is definitely on top of the list, in my opinion, for changing who you are, changing your identity and all of that stuff, like it's so helpful for self-discovery and for leaning into your edges. You actually don't have to go anywhere, because just because you think it's going to be a certain experience doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's not tied to the place, it's tied to you, to yourself. All right? And even Bali won't fix your problems. I promise. All right, so this lesson is going to make more sense as we're moving along, because my second lesson here was the chasing moments versus big breakthroughs, right? Pressure, making it happen now or never. So I don't know if you've ever had this feeling of like, it needs to happen now or never. It's literally now or never. I've had that experience in my life, especially as I'm turning 30, right? I just wrapped up recording a podcast episode that's gonna be released later, but it's essentially about my insecurities and fears about turning 30, so that's coming soon. But there was this pressure of like, I need to have a huge breakthrough here now when I'm in Bali. I have this amount of time, me in Bali, so where is that big breakthrough? It needs to happen. Where's my spiritual connection? Where's the big, aha moment? Where the heck is this? The longer I was trying to make it happen, the longer I was operating in this pressure, like it needs to happen now. It needs to happen now that I'm in Bali. Otherwise, this would be a waste of time and money and resources. Otherwise, I'm gonna look dumb. Otherwise, people are gonna judge me. I'm gonna judge me, right? All of that stuff. So it needs to happen right now. Otherwise, it doesn't even count, right? All that crazy stuff. Then I had a beautiful moment when I realized that actually it doesn't make sense to be chasing big breakthroughs. It doesn't make sense to be chasing big aha moments because, first of all, they always come to us. They come unexpectedly. They usually come as a surprise. And they're not the point of life. Even though those big breakthroughs, big aha moments, big milestones, like they are glorious and amazing and incredible, even like hitting a huge milestone in your business or having this big realization of like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do with my life. Like those moments are amazing, but they don't happen because we are chasing them. They happen as we are focused on the moment to moment, the moment. That's how they happen, right? And so instead of chasing those big breakthroughs, I started focusing on those very beautiful moments. That moment that I put like my tea and my food and everything in the perfect angle on the table. That moment when the sun was just shining so perfectly and was reflecting in the pool. That moment when I was like riding on a scooter through the rice fields and the temperature was just right and it just looked so freaking gorgeous. Like I started chasing those moments that felt so fun, so beautiful, so perfect. And it was through those moments that I actually had a lot of these big breakthroughs, right? Just witnessing that moment that I had my tea and my food, and there was a specific picture that I took in that moment. Having that moment gave me this breakthrough. Number 3, drop your expectations. I had this big expectation of what's going to happen in Bali, what should happen in Bali, how it should happen, all of that stuff. And it wasn't like that at all. I thought that my experience in Bali is going to be like, just like a straight line going. It was more like up, down, up, down, up, down, down, a little bit of all over the place. Well, doesn't that remind you of something? If you're a business owner, this is literally our life on a daily basis. So when we are having so many expectations and we like put pressure on those expectations, how it should be or how it shouldn't be. And like I was comparing myself to like other trips and I was like, I never felt like this. I never felt so upset. I never had so many things going wrong. I never had so many, mishaps. I never had blah, 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 blah. I was like comparing to my past self, to my past moments. I was also comparing myself to those people on Instagram. Like, well, why did these people have like the perfect Bali experience and they loved it and I am not? And why are these people having a better experience? Why are these people finding friends and I'm not? And all of these comparisons, all of these judgments, all of these expectations, how it should be, how it shouldn't be. And then I dropped expectations. And dropping expectations doesn't mean that you are going to settle, that you're no longer going to care, that you're not going to have goals, that you're not going to have dreams or desires. It just means that you're going to let go of that control freak inside of you, how it should happen step by step. And trust that it's going to unfold, because when we are placing so much attention to those expectations, we're taking ourselves out of the present moment. And when we take ourselves out of the present moment, we are not there. We're not experiencing the moment. Therefore, we cannot shift, we cannot change, we cannot have a breakthrough, and we're not even experiencing it. We're robbing ourselves of our time, right? And when you take yourself out of the present moment, what do you have? Nothing. Literally nothing. The present moment is actually the only time that you can change something, that you can learn something, that you can experience something. Isn't this just so freaking backwards? So the lesson that I learned was to drop the expectations of how it should be, how it shouldn't be, how it should look like, how it shouldn't look like. What does it matter how other people have their expectations and experiences, and just focus on what it was. Like I literally focused on like, okay, so this is what's happening, so now what? And I was so present and so grounded in what was that I could actually experience it, shift it, and change it. So that was freaking wonderful. Number 4. So this is the one I partly shared on Instagram. So it's time to stop being so freaking scared. You guys, I am a scary cat. I actually do have fears, even though some people don't believe that I'm ever scared of anything. But I grew up in a place that did not have an ocean or a sea. So water is not something I feel completely comfortable with. Waves, I'm not comfortable with that. Heights, I am scared of having my head out the water. I am scared of snakes because we don't have really any in the Czech Republic, right? So like there are all these things I'm scared of, but I challenged myself so much in Bali to just keep facing my fears. Like I did the water purification where literally like we were underwater for so freaking long. Like we had to stick our head under that like huge stream of water that was really powerful. I was just, when I was standing in line waiting to go under that particular stream of water, it was like moving me. I barely could walk. So it was very strong, very powerful. But I did that. I did the fly high yoga. I did actually go snorkeling even though there were big waves, right? And I asked for help. I asked for support where I could. And I did all of these things, and majority of them turned out to be something that I absolutely not only was fine with, but I loved it. I enjoyed it. I had the best time of my life, especially with the fly high yoga. I'm still considering getting those thingies that help you hang in the air for the living room, because I'm like, this was so much fun being upside down and like turning and twisting and all that stuff. So that might still be happening, right? Like I know that fear is obviously scary, and a lot of times we don't want to do it. We don't want to move forward with our fear because, oh my gosh, what if I get hurt? What if I'm gonna look like a dummy? What if I embarrass myself? What if other people are going to judge me, right? That comes out everywhere in our lives and in our businesses and everywhere. But at the same time, like, well, what if you face your fear and you end up having the best time of your life, and then it's something that enriches your life? Because for the very first time when I went snorkeling in Hawaii, I did not have a good time at first. I was terrified. It was also like kind of poorly organized. When people like were all on top of me. Anyway, now it's something that I absolutely love and I am willing to do, even though there's another fear like big waves or, you know, the most venomous snakes in the ocean and stuff like that. Like, I'm willing to do it anyway because it brings me so much joy and so much fun. So just because we fear something, it doesn't mean that it needs to be a stop sign. Of course, we all have our limits, and I'm not saying you should go over that limit when you put yourself in a trauma response. Like, that's not gonna help anyone. But challenging ourselves and facing our fears, the more you do it, the easier it will actually become. Because by the time I was facing my fear for 10th time in Bali, it felt like, of course, I'm gonna be fine, I'm gonna be okay. So a lot of times the things that we fear turn into the best experiences possible, and that's something that I want to remember every single time that I'm scared of something. Lesson number 5, making hard decisions in integrity with our values, with who we are, with what we believe is right, is always the best thing to do. I don't know what else to say. It always pays off. The universe always rewards us. So I had an experience I hired a photographer twice, 2 different ones, but through the same company, if you will. And the first one was freaking amazing. That's where all those pictures from the swings are, and like the videos, and like I just had the time of my life. It was so fun. I felt like a princess. I felt like a model. It was like really, really good and fun experience. But then I had a second photo shoot that turned out terrible. Literally, I had to convince the guy to take pictures of me. He didn't even want to go to that 3rd place to go take pictures of me. It was like, I'm just gonna stay in a car. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you're supposed to take pictures of me. And I paid so much more money than for the first photo shoot. So needless to say, it was horrible. And the pictures were poor quality. Like, literally, if I asked strangers to take pictures of me, it probably would have been either the same or even better. So I actually reached out to those people and I said, hey, I really loved my first photo shoot with you guys and I would love to hire you again, but this is kind of what happened. This was my experience and I would like partial refund. And I asked for partial refund because the guy did drive me around and I did see the places, even though I did not end up having the pictures, and that felt right and integrity to me. And they literally refunded me right away. I totally didn't expect it. I was just like, I'm doing this honestly for my own peace, that I stood up for myself, for what I believe in, for what I believe is right. And bam, it panned out perfectly. I also had a couple of things in my business, people ghosting, people wanting to cancel their payments when they were like already received the program and stuff like that. And every single time I just grounded myself, tapped into my values, tapped into what I believed was right, not just for me, but for like how I would, like what I believe was in integrity, how I would want to be treated as well, like if I was held to my higher standard. And honestly, I was met with the most beautiful responses. I had other incredible things happening and like line up for me. So just that confirmation that every single time that we stay in integrity and we stand up what we believe is right and it's aligned with our values, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's hard, it always pays off. Not only because we feel so good that we didn't betray ourselves, but because the universe is literally like matching that. Like, oh, you're doing the right thing, okay, we're gonna match that, right? Like, it's, you work like a magnet. So that was an incredible lesson and I'm just so proud of myself for that one. Lesson number 6. So as you guys know, I woke up to hike a mountain, an active volcano, Mount Batur, and my alarm went off at 1:30 a.m. to go do this hike, you guys. I am not necessarily a morning bird, and anything before 6 a.m. literally just gives me like heart palpitations. But I was like, I heard that this is amazing, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna challenge myself to hike this, even though I read all these reviews how it's a difficult hike. I'm gonna do it even though it might be uncomfortable, even though I don't have a backpack. So I was literally hiking with my like Bali bag. It's like a tote bag and I had all of my stuff in that. Plus we were going to like hot springs after, so I had like extra food and I had like bathing suit, extra clothes. It was hilarious. So I was hiking with that bag when everyone was like in hiking boots and like with a backpack, and it's just hilarious. But anyway, as we were hiking up that mountain, I was so honestly, first, I was so worried that it would be really embarrassing, that I would be out of breath, that I would have to stop, because I'm not a big hiker. And at that point, I haven't worked out in like 4 or 5 weeks, really. Like the yoga classes that I took were more relaxing than anything. And I haven't done any cardio, I haven't worked out. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna be embarrassing. And I even told the people who were coming with me, I'm like, if you need to leave me behind, just leave me behind. And I was really, really scared that I'm gonna completely embarrass myself, especially with a like tote bag. I'm like, oh, and sparkly pants. I was like, I'm just going to be such a typical stereotype girl that does not hike. But I was like, whatever, I'm doing it, right? And then we were constantly stopping. Why are we stopping? Like all the freaking time, like are we even gonna make it for the sunrise? I was genuinely concerned. Then I looked around and I saw people like red in their faces, sweating, out of breath, like the people who were in our group. Like, you know, the girl, she was super sweet, but she was struggling. And I was like, what is going on? I was looking around me I looked at me. I was like, I am not out of breath, nowhere near. I am not even sweating. I'm warm, like comfortable, but I'm not sweating. And that's when it hit me. Oh my gosh. What if I am so much better than I think? I am so much better than I thought. I am in such a better shape than I thought. I am handling this so much better. Where else do I do that? Where else do I not see myself and I'm actually doing so freaking good? Because how we do one thing, it's how we do a lot of things. I realized that a lot of times I actually don't see myself in my work. Like how big of an impact the work that I do has, how many people's lives were changed. And it was so interesting because the day after, I think I saw a post from one of my past clients. There was a client that I had a few years ago, and I remember this specific phone call. We had this call and we were talking about her relationship, and let's just say that there was a crisis and she was questioning that relationship, and we talked about it and we worked through it, and turns out they are so freaking happy. They just celebrated, I think, like a 10-year anniversary or something like that, like something crazy. And I was just so happy seeing that they're together, and I was just like, congratulations, and I didn't think anything of it. But then she came back and responded, this is because of you, because of that phone call. And I knew exactly which phone call she meant, and honestly it brought me to tears because it was like, oh my gosh, like I am so happy and so proud of myself for doing this work, and this is not to toot my own horn. Like, she did the work in the relationship, they did the work together, but I am just so proud of how impactful the work is and how much people still remember it even years later. I started questioning, like, where else do I not see how good I am, how capable I am, how much I can do and how much I have accomplished already. So it's such a wonderful moment of I could actually see myself in a true light. And for those of you who are human design junkies, I'm a projector, right? And that's one of our biggest things. Like, we often don't see ourselves. I started seeing myself and like really giving myself all the credit, which is something that I didn't grow up with. Like, where I come from in the Czech Republic, people don't give you credit for all of the good things that you did. There's no, woohoo, you did such a good job. Like, no, we don't do that. We're hard on our kids. It was a wonderful moment, and now maybe this is a moment for you to also check in with yourself. Like, where do you not see yourself? Where are you like not truly giving yourself credit? So let me know in the comments. I want to know. Where are you claiming that you're freaking epic and amazing? The duality. So I talked about it on Instagram, and it's a duality, right? So when I was in Bali, obviously because these are the lessons from Bali, duh, Kate. I had a couple of conversations actually about duality, about honoring the good and the bad. And so the Balinese, they put out little offerings called Chenang, and they place them usually on like different sacred places or like in temples, and you always see some of them on the floor and some of them on top of that thing. And I was wondering, like, what is the difference? Why do you put it on the bottom and why do you put it on the top? And one of the photographers, the first one, the really good one, explained to me that essentially the Balinese honor the good spirits high up, right? The high spirits, the good spirits, but they also honor the lower spirits, the bad spirits, the evil spirits, the jealous spirits. And I asked a very simple question. Why? And the answer was even simpler. Because we don't want them to get jealous and put something bad on us. Duh. I would say I'm a very positive person, but I also am the person who doesn't bypass her emotions and accept the emotions and the things that are just not all that pleasant. Like, I don't bypass, I don't ignore them, I don't pretend that those things don't happen. but I never thought to honor and love that side of duality. It always felt like, well, this is something that I just need to deal with. From then on, I started playing with honoring that duality. For example, the duality of eventually having a really good time in Bali and loving Bali and missing my husband, that I am not with him, that I barely get to talk to him because of the 13-hour time difference. And I started fully honoring it and almost like sending love to that duality, to that part that didn't feel so pleasant, right? Or like the duality of being super scared but also being super proud that I did the swings, that I went on those crazy swings. Or the duality of doing breath work and like fully expressing myself and it feeling so good, yet that fear of like, oh my gosh, what if people are judging me or are uncomfortable with me expressing my emotions? So it's just like honoring that duality and seeing it with respect and seeing it with love. Therefrom, all of a sudden, it didn't feel like there is one side and another side. It felt like they started blending and being interchangeable and both equally important. So if there is something like a duality that you are experiencing right now, like experiencing something amazing and something shitty at the same time, I highly suggest start looking at it as like, how can I honor this? How can I send this love? I know it's hard. It's not meant to be easy. But what if you can do that and then it becomes lighter just by that nature? So honoring duality shifted so much, and experiencing duality was literally probably the number one experience that I had in Bali. There was duality in every freaking thing. It was wild. It was insane. And you'll probably see it on the video when I share the vlogs from Bali. Be happy with what is. So I went to see a couple of healers, and 3. And every single one of them essentially told me, be happy with what is, and that will create more. And duh, I know that. I know that we cannot create abundance out of lack. I know that we cannot create more out of feeling unhappy about what is. But just when they said it, it sparked something inside of me of experiencing, like being happy where I am, like right now, and focusing on experiencing where I am instead of always chasing the next thing. So even an example from how I'm applying it right now in back home in Florida is thinking of the ways, how can I enjoy our house more, the one that I am in, not just how can I work so that our next house is better or bigger or more fancy or whatever, but like loving what is and experiencing what is, and taking my breakfast outside, or like going on walks in the neighborhood, like truly enjoying myself, or coloring, or doing whatever to enjoy what is right now, like the time that I am in right now, the phase that I am in right now, without the I need to strive for something more. Of course I am, of course I always will, but experiencing what is, not just be so focused on getting to the next thing, but being where I am. And it's so freaking beautiful, and it feels like my entire nervous system is calming down and like relaxing, and that in itself feels so good. All right, the next lesson, and this is essentially our second to last, is discomfort doesn't always mean something is wrong. And this was so huge because especially in the first 2 weeks, you guys, if you're watching me on Instagram or if you're gonna watch the vlogs, you will see like I was so freaking uncomfortable all the freaking time. I was uncomfortable in my own body. I was uncomfortable in the situation. I was uncomfortable where I was. I was just uncomfortable. And when I was facing my fears, I was so uncomfortable doing that. Like I was shaking sometimes. I was having mini panic attacks. Like it was not fun in those moments. But I reminded myself, or I don't know where that came from, that just because I am uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that something is wrong. Because when we are shifting, and this is something that I do, and it's part of Success Academy with my clients, is that when we are shifting from the identity that we've been up until this point, and we're shifting into the new identity, right? The 2.0 version of us, it will feel threatening and uncomfortable to that 1.0 version of you, and it will want to like hold on and be like, no, and it may make you feel nearly unsafe. Like it's gonna feel like it's unsafe, it's gonna feel uncomfortable, it's gonna feel like, this doesn't feel good, to keep you where you are. So discomfort doesn't always mean that something is wrong. A lot of times it just means you are leaving what previously was uncomfortable. You are leaving that 1.0 version of you and becoming the 2.0 version of you. And there is going to be a time before the 2.0 version of you becomes your new comfort zone. So the space in between is the discomfort. Now there's also a difference in the discomfort of like, this feels wrong, meaning, I don't know, I should not follow this person to this dark alley because it seems very sketchy, right? That's something, that's danger. That's your danger alert coming off. But there is a difference between that and difference between, okay, I'm just gonna, like, I am strapped up on this swing and I'm very uncomfortable of the idea that I'm gonna just swing here. But also I know that I'm safe, I'm supported, there's a whole bunch of guys, there's some nets underneath, so I am all right. This is uncomfortable, but the 2.0 version of me faces her fears, so let's freaking do it, right? A lot of times we stop ourselves because it's uncomfortable, or we sabotage ourselves because it's uncomfortable. And like, that's something that I'm experiencing here right now as well. Like, I am really tapping into, well, I guess I would say 11.0 version of me now, but the next version of me, and like, how does she show up? What does she do? What are her habits? What's her personality and stuff like that? Like, I'm tapping into that, and I am met with this like, I don't want to do anything. No, this feels wrong. I don't feel good, right? This is all that previous version of me sending these alerts and trying to trick me into staying comfy, cozy, and just do the things that I've always done because that makes me feel safe, that makes me feel comfortable, that feels right. Discomfort does not mean that something is wrong. All right, and the last but not least lesson that I'm going to share with you today was actually from my breath work. And I believe I did film a video of like breakthroughs from breath work that I'm gonna share with you later. But on the very first breath work that I did in person in Bali, in the Radiantly Alive studio with Nirmoha, I was shocked because the message that came through, the emotions, the feelings, the sensations, they were being released, said, "You are such a disappointment, Kate." I was shocked and I started crying, I started bawling. I felt like such a failure. I felt like such a disappointment. And it was all these thoughts of like, why are you even trying? Like, you're going to end up disappointing the people around you. You're such a disappointment to Zach. You're such a disappointment to yourself. You're such a disappointment to your family. Like, all of this just came flooding. And I was so shocked, and I processed the emotions because that's what breathwork does and helps you with. And on the other side of it, after I processed those emotions and when we were done and I opened my eyes, it felt almost like a dream. Like, what? This doesn't even make sense. And it was just such a beautiful experience of, holy crap, I really tapped into my subconscious of what is actually holding me back. And a lot of times the fear of disappointment is something that's holding us back from really going for what we want, from really like leaping into the next milestone or goal or version of you, or the next identity, right? And so processing those emotions and having breath work assist me helped me release this disappointment thing. So I guess the lesson from it is do breath work. If you've never done breath work, the deep breath work, I highly suggest it. I highly recommend it. And 2, there are some subconscious and conscious things that are holding you back. There are the reason why you don't have what you want. And you cannot tap into them consciously because they're not part of your conscious mind. I don't consciously thought I am a disappointment, but my subconscious, the one that's actually directing your actions, your reactions, like everything, that was the one that felt this way up until I released it. So working with your subconscious mind will completely change your life because there's no way to access it in our conscious. So yeah, tap into your subconscious brain. It will shock you. It will feel weird, but when you do the work, it will pay off. So let me know, you guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. And if you have like a favorite lesson that you're gonna take with you, let me know which one was your favorite in the comments. If you're not subscribed to this channel, please do so. It really supports me, gets me excited, gets me more motivated to film more videos. Obviously, this is the very first, very much start of me putting things on YouTube again, but I just so want to do it. This is one of the things that I decided I'm gonna do in Bali because I love being creative. I love filming. So I hope that this makes you also feel like we're hanging out together. And if it does, let me know below in the comments. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone. Excuse me. Excuse me. Well, if I fall and die, it's gonna be documented.